Hello, we are at Charcha 23 Better Together by G20 Summit Startup in Hyderabad. We are starting at the ISB. Yes.
So we were always 50% and we'll always be 50%. It is a question of what that 50% does and how it can actually take lead in changing some of the things that India needs. So education, of course, now very high enrollment, very high numbers of girls going all the way up to college. But I think that the real crux is that after all of that, what are they able to do? I think we need a big change in how women can earn and local contexts, but earn well. Just earning is not enough. I think there are a lot of women who work, but how do we work so that that work can translate into better outcomes? So we've come part of the way, but there's a long way to go to be able to translate everything that we are doing today into really higher capability and higher earning. So there was a study done some years ago about a single man who lived in a village. And by the time he finished all his housework and his gathering of water and fuel, he only had 2 hours to do any work. And I think that tells you how important it is that the work that is done and is currently unpaid, how that enables others to go ahead. So, I would, if I had any power in this country, I would say let's start with Anganwadi workers, Asha workers, and make sure that they are one of the most important people in our society. Because if our children don't have a good beginning, they are never going to make it ahead.
Hi, I'm Ruspe Irani. I head HR for the Mahindra Group. Women's economic empowerment is very close to our heart. For women to thrive in a corporate environment, it is very important for the environment to be truly inclusive. Being inclusive, or having an inclusive culture, means encouraging every employee, woman or man, to bring their best self to work. And that is easier said than done, frankly. In the case of women, it's important to recognize that they play different roles, and roles which are different from men also. Recognizing these roles, recognizing that there are certain stages in their lives when they need to be partnered closely, where flexibility needs to be provided for them, is what is going to make a difference to them, not just being part of a corporate, but actually thriving in a corporate environment. It's also very important for us to break stereotypes. There is this perception that there are only certain kinds of jobs that women can do, and frankly, that's completely untrue. In M&M, we have completely dedicated women's lines in factories. Our paint shop in Chakan is manned by women. In Mahindra Logistics, if I'm not mistaken, more than half of the employees in our Nasik warehouse are women. Women are driving last mile mobility vehicles. So there are lots of roles that in the past were not attributable to women, which are today being done by women, and often done better by women than by men. So I think breaking these stereotypes, getting rid of unconscious biases, and partnering women through their life stages, all of this is going to ensure that women play a key role in the development of India going forward.
This was the 4th edition of Charcha, a convening for India's livelihood sector. And if you look at India's livelihood challenges, the inclusion of women in the workforce and women's participation in the workforce is one of the areas of deep concern. The women were the first to be impacted in the pandemic and are the last to bounce back. We need a certain thoughtful problem solving by Samaj, Sarkar and Bazaar to solve this problem. There's a role that civil society has to play in making sure gender biases come down and there is an active focus on building the capacity of girls and young women to compete for employment and for entrepreneurship opportunities. Corporate India has a very big role to play to shake off its current biases in how it employs women and how it supports them through their life stages, and creates opportunities for leadership by recognizing inherent skills of women to lead. And finally, government to take an active policy approach and ensure that women's access to capital, access to ownership of land and other forms of property is supported. And over time, we become not just a gender equal society, but one that leverages the power of women for national growth and development.